You love podcasts, the stories, the laughs, the unexpected turns. But when this episode ends, the silence starts. Not anymore. Audiobooks.com turns that silence into your next great adventure. With over 450,000 titles, from bestsellers to hidden gems, your love for listening just found its new best friend. And because you already know the joy of audio, we're giving you 3 free audiobooks to start your journey. Imagine your favorite podcast, now with unlimited episodes. That's audiobooks.com. Keep the story going. Sign up for your free trial at audiobooks.com/podcastfree today. Because for podcast lovers like you, the end of an episode is just the beginning. That's audiobooks.com/podcastfree.
Attention Talking Simpsons listeners, we have a special mini-series just for you.
We're going through the entire first season of King of the Hill, and you can only hear it if you're a $5 and up patron at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
We're giving the Talking Simpsons treatment to all 13 episodes of King of the Hill's first season, and if you want a free sample, you'll find the first episode available for free in the Talking Simpsons feed. Patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. It's the only place you'll find the first season of Talk King of the Hill.
Made you go click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello everybody and welcome to What a Cartoon, a heartbreaking work of average to moderate genius. I'm your host, Twinkletown University graduate Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Henry Gilbert, and I took 2 turkeys before this podcast and nothing.
Should have took 3. And today's episode is the Disenchantment episode, In Her Own Right.
That's a good start, but if you want to be a real writer, you're going to need to procrastinate a lot more.
So before we start, I want to say hello to all you Talking Simpsons listeners. We dropped this into your feed as an act of sabotage.
Or sabotage.
Sabotage, as Shatner would say. Just to let you know, we have another podcast you might like to listen to. It's What a Cartoon, of course. You might have heard that up front. And we talk about a different cartoon from a different series every week. And this is a little sample of it because it's Simpsons related. It's our obligation and duty to talk about all Simpsons related projects.
Yeah, we did one for Disenchantment Season 1, which I think you folks heard last year. Both What a Cartoon and Talking Simpsons, and now it's time for, Season 1, Part 2. I was going to say Season 2, but the naming system of this is very complicated.
I don't like the parts, especially when they're a year apart. It's a new season to me, but...
I think that's Netflix avoiding some sort of legal red tape or economical obligation.
Oh, you know what? You're so right about that.
They negotiate 20... They only have to negotiate 1 season of 20 episodes, then release it as 2 seasons, basically.
Yeah, you do 1 year of work that they parse out over 2 seasons, or parcel out, rather. But yeah, What a Cartoon is free. You can find it where you find Talking Simpsons and other podcasts, and of course at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. But this is just a small taste of a Simpsons-related episode of What a Cartoon landing in your podcast machine right now.
And it's been 13 whole months since we last talked about Disenchantment. I thought it was going to be year to year, but they decided they did August before, and now they did September this time. My theory is it's because BoJack Horseman is normally their September show, but now it's going to have its final season debut in October. So
I didn't know if there was a rhyme or reason to Netflix because I just assume everyone watches the season in the weekend it comes out.
Pretty much.
Which is why it comes out on Friday, right?
Yeah. Basically, every Netflix show comes out on Friday to give you the whole weekend. And if it's a big Netflix show, they put it out over a holiday weekend, like I believe it was Memorial Day weekend when Arrested Development Season 4 debuted on Netflix. So then everybody could be confused all at once watching that overly complicated thing.
I'm really glad Disney Plus is breaking up the binge model because I like having everything at once. I love our overlords. I like having everything at once, the option of that, but it's also ruined the way we talk about television.
Yeah.
No one could, talk about things incrementally. It's always got to be like, you have to be up to date. You have to have watched the whole season. And some of us don't have 5 hours free immediately when a thing drops.
Well, that's your fault.
Yeah. I'm living life incorrectly.
I rewatched that Birthday Boy skit a couple weeks ago.
There's too many shows?
Yeah, too many shows, which it's about teen TiVo and how there's too many shows. It doesn't even take into account streaming services for the too many shows, which, of course, that sketch ends with Bob Odenkirk telling you that you do have to watch every show. So get to it.
It's our job as part of society.
But I do think the streaming model, and that will come into my critiques of this season as well.
Yes.
But I do think the streaming model has kind of gone too far, or it's just like I understand how the machine of Netflix works, that like when Netflix, and it's just kind of grown into this beast you can't keep up with, is that Netflix got its real start because prestige TV like Sopranos and 6 Feet Under and Mad Men, those are super successful, and they were seeing that everybody was getting the DVDs at home and just binging all of those and sending them back. And when Netflix got into the streaming world, they saw how much TV was being watched way more than movies, even though they're called flicks, Netflix, but it was television shows. So then they start making their own original shows, and they thought, well, we can't make people wait every week. They just want to watch the whole season at once. So when they release House of Cards as one of their first big originals, are just like, just watch it all at once, just fucking do it. And so then as Netflix, as the industry leader, everybody had to copy that. So every show has to dump them all at once. And I think with shows like Sopranos or Breaking Bad, things that are built for cliffhangers and constant moving forward and just this like breathless motion forward, it works for those kind of dramas more than it does for a comedy or other genres.
Not every show is suited for that format, and I think it puts obligations on some creators that make the shows worse.
Yeah. I think that people, I hope, are learning that there's a different way to watch TV, or that they can go back to it, or that you can just like freaking wait. We're not part of the water cooler office conversation anymore. Like I really, time for the complain about the old job bit of the podcast. But
I'll get my popcorn.
I really didn't like the feeling of obligation I had there at our old job of, well, you had to have watched Game of Thrones. Don't you have an opinion on the newest one?
No, I was playing this 50-hour video game I have to write about.
And yeah, all those shows, whenever they come out, it just feels like you got to be part of the conversation. And especially for as big of Twitter posters as we are, it also is like you feel this constant urge to be part of a conversation and have a take. You got to have a take, which I had a much better experience with comedy this last month, of where I decided I'd finally now watch the first season of the What We Do in Shadows show, which is really, really funny. Big thumbs up. Matt Berry, who's on Disenchantment, is one of the leads in that show, and he's so funny.
Really good things about it.
But what was awesome was it had aired on FX months ago, and so I felt no urge to watch all of it. And me and my husband just watched it once a night at our own pace, which was really fun. But meanwhile, with Disenchantment Part 2, though, I felt the same kind of urge of like, I gotta, next one, let's see the next one, let's do it.
You don't want to be spoiled, but I feel like, we love Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I think a good example of forcing a story or forcing this sort of narrative on something that doesn't need it is the Sci-Fi Channel episodes, where the Sci-Fi Channel was like, you need a story, you need cliffhangers, and they just sort of shrugged like, this is not what our show is, but Sci-Fi is like, oh, you're a weekly show, well, people need to want to tune in the next week, even though they didn't understand the format. So I feel like the same sort of lessons aren't being learned here that weren't learned like 20 years ago with Mystery Science Theater on Sci-Fi Channel.
Or even with season 11 of Mystery Science Theater.
I will say the story is much lighter than these weird arcs that were in season 8 of Mystery Science Theater. I'm sorry if this is too specific, but there were these very bad, even the creators would say they're not very good. Like, they're making these people who aren't trained actors do these dramatic scenes with stakes and, plot development and things like that, when they were just, ultimately, their job was to stand there and be goofy and be be immaturish on purpose as part of the charm of the show. Yeah, it really, like them going to Rome, I think that sequence especially really stretched them past their breaking point. We have 3 actors and they would just cycle through them over and over. In the Netflix Mystery Science Theater shows, I think by the second set of them, they realized, like, let's just have 6 at once. We can't drop 14 movies on people and expect everybody to watch
watch them at once. Like that was literally like 20 hours of content just dumped on one day. I think Disenchantment is still they're still figuring out how they deal with that in part 2 of season 1. We had thought maybe you'd see more of the lessons learned in part 2, but I think this was all still kind of produced together.
Yeah.
So I feel like it'll be more in next year when we'll see more of the lessons learned, I think.
I did enjoy part 2. Unfortunately, had some of the issues I didn't like about part 1. And I thought too much time was spent sort of doing cleanup on the plot developments of season 1, part 1. And it took them a little too long to get to what I liked more about the first part, which was the standalone adventure episodes that were just like fun explorations of this world. I felt like all of a sudden there were stakes, and then all of a sudden there weren't stakes. And then there was a lot of cleanup. And I just wanted like, no, I want to see you have fun in this world. But they were like, no, we need to get the status quo back into order. We need to repair this world. And if they didn't destroy the world in the first place, they wouldn't have needed to spend time repairing it. I felt like there was so much time spent on both aspects of that plot element that it took too long to get to the episodes that I liked.
It was kind of the reverse of part 1 in pacing, where part 1 started with these kind of episodic adventures, and then for the last 3 episodes, it was like, oh, here's a big plot development. This is all leading to a giant cliffhanger and tons of revelations. And then part 2 began with 3 episodes of all the fallout of that, and all just to get back to a status quo that would allow more episodic episodes. And it felt like robbing Peter to pay Paul, of just all this extra work to get to the thing that the show is best at. And when the show can get to, even though, okay, so like in episodes like episode 2 with the heaven and hell stuff, there were definitely funny jokes in there. Even in the first episode, which was just all about Dagmar and her mother's kingdom, all that stuff. There were lots of funny jokes in there, but I still was also thinking about like, oh, where's this going? Like, it was engaging my brain in 2 different places, sitcom brain and drama brain, and I wasn't sure how much to enjoy it with one or the other.
That's true, yeah. I don't know if it's our fault for expecting a gag-heavy show like The Simpsons or Futurama while we're watching this. Maybe that's not the show they're trying to make, but when I see those Matt Groening drawings and I hear those voice actors, I can't help but think that there should be more jokes. But maybe that's not the show they want to make, and if that's true, then that's maybe my fault for engaging with it the wrong way.
Yeah. I mean, I think they are really challenging themselves, but in a good way, with straddling a line of like, they do want to have a Futurama style show of like observations about our current day, but through the lens of fantasy, just as Futurama did with sci-fi. And they want to have just, these kind of sitcom setups like in this episode, but they also do want to have a story with stakes where characters can seriously die and not come back. And these are things that like Futurama didn't really do. Futurama would play around with this more, definitely more than The Simpsons, but on this show, when a character like dies, they are dead, though not of any of the 3 core characters. But like when they killed off Jerry, I was like, oh, he's actually dead.
Yeah.
Jerry's dead. Jerry.
So many people die in the show that it's hard to take death too seriously, though, because death is often the punchline.
Yeah, that's true. Though sometimes it can be so grisly. I think that too is an interesting needle to thread there. Or when they bring back characters like, oh, by the way, we're just going to spoil stuff from part 2 in this chat. If you haven't seen all part 2 yet, you might want to check it out.
Up front is our part 2 discussion. We'll get to the actual episode in the second half.
Yeah. But when they say bring back characters like the sea captain from the pleasure boat and from part 1, I knew he was dead. I was just waiting to like, this guy's totally going to die. They only brought him back to die, and then he gets killed.
Yeah, like murder is a new fun joke for them that I think they overuse because like the sea captain gets killed in this episode, the director gets killed. I'm like, that could have been a fun character. Like ultimately, I think they don't have enough characters in this show.
Yeah. But I guess the thing they're trying to do is to be Game of Thrones while making fun of Game of Thrones. And now that I watched a lot more of Game of Thrones in the last season, that was the perfect time to get onto Game of Thrones in the last
when no one's talking
episodes.
about it. No, I agree with you sincerely.
But now I see a lot more of the things, especially with the character of Bean being so much like Daenerys Targaryen, the white-haired heir to the throne, whose lineage is of people who have a history of mental illness. Like that was the cover for her character going mad and why her father was the Mad King and all this stuff. And that's why with Bean this season, they're like, no, she's not dragonborn like Daenerys was, but she has some sort of magical background in this other land. And tell her, like, you might be crazy, half of our family goes crazy, which that is a straight up Daenerys reference.
That's the context that I didn't get or didn't have.
Yeah. So that new context shows me more of what they're going for with Game of Thrones, which, like, if they didn't touch on it, that would be like Futurama never making Star Wars or Star Trek jokes like that. It's just the popular thing you hit on. But I do think this season has a lot of really funny stuff in it. Like my second favorite episode in this, the Dreamland job, is a really, really funny one.
That's one of my favorites.
And it has some very random jokes in it. I actually thought Zog was less funny this season, last season, but he's still really good.
I think he's less funny because all the jokes are about him being sad and miserable.
And I think Bean became a lot more of a character in this season, too. Like, I think she really became the main character in this season.
Yeah, she's working through a lot more stuff in this season.
One thing I definitely felt in part one was that because Elfo was this, new to the world guy that everybody explained things to, that it kind of made him the main character, even though Bean's supposed to be, because everybody's sad about Elfo, everybody explains things to Elfo. Then in this one, like, no, Elfo is really secondary to Bean in the show now.
Yeah, they did change his character in a way that I think they didn't nail down, but towards the end of the season, I was kind of getting a feel for who Elfo is now, and that he is not like the Fry-like, very naive character in this new world. He is now super jaded, and he's now more just like a losery creep than an innocent. He's been tainted by Dreamland.
Yeah, I don't want to see him pining after Bean. Really, I don't. It's like, Bean doesn't need this guy.
Yeah.
Like, F Elfo, or Elmo as he is often called. An improvement in part two is that I think they enriched Dreamland more. There was more places to go. Oh, especially because the elves moved to town, and so it's like, they can go to the elf village now.
And Lucy gets a job as a tavern proprietor.
Yeah, the Flying Scepter is now Lucy's bar, which is I think they rightly realized if they were going to write so many episodes where Bean gets drunk, then you need more to do in the bar than just it being where she's drinking.
Having Lucy be sort of the bartender of this world.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say to this show's credit, it is the best looking non-anime animated show on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it makes every other show look like a pile of puke, as Mo would say. I'm sure the Groening name probably meant that you give this show lots of money. Maybe that was the man from Groening and Company, but this show is just a treat to look at. There's so much texture to the backgrounds. It's gorgeous. The color choices are so interesting. It's just fun to stare at. And everything else looks like color forms moving around compared to Disenchantment. And I think it's because they're getting a lot more money.
Yeah, definitely.
It's traditional animation.
Yeah. I mean, it's still digital because everything's digital now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's much more in the way they make the rest of the network stuff. Like, it's the level of network animation, which is above the level of, like, even Adult Swim, what they'll spend on animation. Well, or it's like Venture Brothers versus most of everything else on Adult Swim on animation level.
Although I think it looks better than some network stuff like Bob's Burgers, because Bob's Burgers, they do what they can with their assets, but it is puppety style animation. And Disenchantment definitely isn't that.
Yeah, well, and that's what Disenchantment needs versus Bob's Burgers. Like, we both really love Bob's Burgers. It's more of just line driven and writing driven. It's made for puppets to basically express their words and then leave. Though they can do action well when they want to, but most episodes of Disenchantment have at least like one like action-y kind of set piece. So you need fuller animation for that too. I think animators would have to relearn a lot of stuff to do BoJack style animation in Matt Groening style, or it just like our brains couldn't understand it. You know, where we're used to that style of drawing moving in a certain way that if it was more puppety and flashy, it wouldn't look right to our heads.
And I will say it looks very much better than The Simpsons does now too, which I think The Simpsons is using that puppety tool set. They're better at disguising it, but you can still see the strings in a way.
I really hope Disney gets them a new production.
Give them some pencils.
Yes, please. I don't blame the current Simpsons staff. They're doing what they can with this show that Fox just kept going like, can you make it cheaper? Can you make it cheaper? Can you make it cheaper?
Yeah,
like,
this is not just us complaining. If you go to the most recent recent DVD commentaries on season 18, you can hear the directors and animators pining for the old digital animation they were able to do before the puppety stuff moved in. Like, even they miss it and what they could do, but it's more money.
But also in the show, another thing I really liked is that I think Lucy's character improved a lot more too. He was the fun sociopath in part one.
Bendery.
Very bendery, and he's still a bit bendery in this. But in Lucy in episode 2, he actually does sacrifice something major, and like he gives something up to help them, and he admits that he likes them. Bender, with him, he obviously likes Fry, but they always go back on it on the show. He's like, oh yeah, Fry, you are my friend. Anyway, I stole your wallet or whatever. Those are the kind of jokes they did. But like in the season finale, for example, Lucy's just like, I care about you guys. I'm not immortal anymore, but I'm happy to die with you. I'm with you guys. Like, that was a sweet moment that I think the character of Lucy needed more of. Like, Eric Andre has so much more range than just being like the guy who's like, noise.
Yeah.
Like, which he's good at that too. I love Eric Andre. I think too, something that hurts the first 3 episodes that makes the rest better is that all of those supporting characters are frozen in stone for 3 episodes.
And even when they come back, you rarely see them after the 3rd episode. You don't see enough of them. Like, I feel like the first part of this first season, or whatever you want to call it, the first 10 episodes, they got a lot more work out of their side characters. And I think they were so focused on telling the story of Bean that they sort of lost those other side characters like Oddfall, who comes back in a big way towards the end. But even characters like Bunty, who I love, I think she has like one line this season, and it's in this episode. Like, what happened to her? She's so funny.
Bunty's one of the funniest characters in the show.
Yeah, and we lost Jerry, and we lost, I forget his name, the guy played by Rich Fulcher, the weird like priestess guy that was with Dagmar.
He had a lot of great lines in the first episode of the part 2, but he seemingly is dead.
He just died unceremoniously. I mean, maybe he's coming back. Who knows? A bookcase fell on him.
I guess, too, did you notice how much they really went on the Futurama stuff? I mean, not just the Steamland and Bite My Shiny Metal Axe.
Yeah.
But I was like,
Farnsworth
all right,
Avenue or whatever?
Yeah, Farnsworth Avenue. That guy, when he had his goggles on, he looks like young Farnsworth.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
What is his name? Gunderson?
Yeah.
Gunderson, yeah. And this was one I didn't catch, but I saw people retweet, so I'm stealing it from them. But Gunderson opens up a drawer. It is a collection of wires that is the exact collection of wires, like drawn the exact same way that Farnsworth has in episode 1 of Futurama.
Oh, you're totally right about that. Wow.
So they're really going deep there.
I will say up front that was my favorite episode because it is doing what I want the show to do and be, and maybe that's just my own baggage I'm putting on the show, but I want it to be like Futurama, and I want them to go to different places and explore different aspects of this world, and I thought they got a lot of fun material out of Steamland. But a lot of the show is spent within the castle, within the town surrounding the castle. I think they ventured out of it a lot more in the first part.
Yeah, they really did. This they stuck a lot more in Dreamland, at least for the first 2 episodes, no Dreamland.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But then for the next 6 episodes or 5 episodes, it's all Dreamland. Then they go to Steamland, and then the Dreamland finale, it cited more on dramatic than comedy, especially with horrible things happen to Zog a lot on so that's the part of the balance there that there's so many jokes about horrible things that happen to Zog that then don't matter the next episode. Like his gout goes away instantly, which by the way, that gout, that
was my
so
favorite
painful.
B-plots.
but that was a situation where Zog was better by the next episode. But then later they want the cliffhanger to matter of Zog has been shot and he might die. Like, you guys should be really worried about that. And it worked to a degree, but I also was thinking well, he just had that gout stuff and it was fine.
I mean, I guess it's the difference between comedy violence and more realistic violence, like getting shot through the chest is not less of a joke than getting a big swollen toe or getting your arm chopped off or whatever.
Zog is just funny throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
He's the receptacle for their fat, lazy dad jokes, except he's now a king who can murder anybody when he says so.
Yeah, I love John DiMaggio in this role.
Yeah. He's, it's a danger, but a quality of the show is that they get so close to can we just have all the Futuramic guys just talk to each other and be in every scene? And
in our first episode of What a Cartoon About Disenchantment, I thought it was nice that all the Futurama guys came back in lesser roles. Now, with the second part, I miss them because you don't hear as much of the side characters, like the King's wizard, who's played by Billy West, and the Jester. You rarely hear them. You rarely hear Oddball, played by Maurice LaMarche. I felt like there was much less of them in this season. Like, it feels like Billy West came in for like half an hour and did all of his lines.
Oh, and another interesting thing they did in the show was like they wrote off the character of Una, seemingly, unless she comes back with a vengeance in the next season.
I mean, it's a credit to the show that I miss these characters, but they're also making a mistake where it's like you're getting rid of too many characters.
Yeah, they need Una. I mean, that one could have been a situation where they knew where the season finale cliffhanger of this was going, and it doesn't work the same if Una is there. So you have to remove her to make that cliffhanger work. Like, a big part of the cliffhanger is that Derek inherits it, and he's the one in charge. If Una's there, then she's the one in charge. So they can't do that.
We see a lot more of him. He's sort of like the Ralph Wiggum of
he is so
Dreamland.
Ralph Wiggum. Yeah.
He's a little smarter.
Yeah, which that's what's fun when he comes off as more intelligent. There's also, though, a bit of him, another Game of Thrones thing. He's Ralph Wiggum if he was a more innocent Joffrey, which King Joffrey, as we all know, he's a nasty little child king who takes over for Baratheon, who basically is Zog. He's the not funny version of Zog.
Okay.
He's a big fat loudmouth who loves hunting and all that.
Is he like that snotty blonde kid in Harry Potter?
Yeah, he's
That's what he looks
basically
like.
the same. Yeah, you've seen the pictures. You know who he is. Yeah, I think they found some new stuff with Derek. I like that a lot with him. And also, like, it was something I was glad they started exploring with Derek and Bean. It gave more depth to Bean, too, that she was like, oh, yeah, I guess I do have a brother, don't I?
Yeah.
I mentioned it before, but another thing I really liked was the elves coming back, because all the elf jokes, the Blanco jokes, all of those,
Shaco,
Weirdo, all of them, they always make me laugh. Like, they're so silly and goofy that I really like that. And so them moving to Dreamland out of their magical land almost makes no sense why they would exit it. But just for joke and story possibilities, I'm really happy the elves came back and all live in Dreamland now.
we saw the return of Levo.
Yeah,
which I
was
think
good.
Josh Weinstein told us on a podcast interview, but I think he asked us to cut that out.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, Levo might come back or something like that. It was the ultimate spoiler for season 2,
now,
or part 2.
I definitely enjoyed seeing Levo appear, the legendary Levo appear. That was nice. And yeah, I guess another thing, though, I had to get used to with the show was to learn to not eat watching it, because it can get gross.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. I was not ready for how scatological this part 2 was, even though part 1 was a bit. And it's not just like how much people die in the show, but also like the, I guess I'm thinking specifically about the elves being sick episode.
Oh, yeah, that's not a good one to watch while eating.
Yeah, when they're all drinking the filth water, like, that all made me, like, I literally gagged. Like, it
did its job.
Though the opening of that episode too reminded me of Futurama and the nudist planet of just everybody's naked with their butts hanging out.
I will say, in terms of content, I feel like the one actual swear they're allowed to say is "goddamn" or "god damn it," and you can't do that on a network still for some reason. And I feel like they're maybe leaning too hard into that, where there's like one "god damn it" per episode. It's like Bob Odenkirk writing this.
I think we joked with them.
Damn it!
I think we joked around with Josh about like, will one episode of Elfo finally say fuck?
Oh, yeah,
Fuck
speaking of that,
this.
so between the last episode of What a Cartoon and this one, we actually went to the Disenchantment offices and interviewed Josh Weinstein, and that interview is on our Patreon at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, and we were led into the writer's room, or the rewrite room, and so for every episode of Season 1, Part 2, there was like a little drawing in the title, and so we were kind of spoiled as to what would happen in the last episode, so the last thing I saw on that wall was Bean tied to the stake and everything on fire.
Yeah.
So I totally forgot about that until I saw it in the show. I was like, I saw that in like February. Yeah, February.
Yeah, I buried that back in my memory after seeing that, but you're right. That was, Josh only let us look around for just a minute and swore us to secrecy, and also was like, no pictures, nothing. But it was so cool to just walk around the Bongo office, former Bongo offices where the production was out of, and see it. Like, Josh was super nice, and I think, he's working really hard on the show. I think he said to us it's been a learning experience for them to go from from a weekly show that has to be 22 minutes to the more open style of Netflix animation that can kind of, some episodes can be 22, some episodes could be 25, some could be 28. It's just how you feel. It was unfortunate though that like it was a quiet time in the office, so we didn't get to meet any of the other writers on it. They weren't around.
We got to track down David X. Cohen somehow. He's not on Twitter. I had Bill Oakley tell him to go on Twitter. He did not respond.
Yeah, boo. Come on, David Cohen. Be bothered on Twitter by everybody.
He's got a PhD in computer science. He should be on Twitter.
I mean, I guess he's enjoying like semi-retire. I think him and all the other writers on this, it was like, a few months work. And then once your script is in and the writing's done, they don't have to live in Santa Monica anymore. They don't have to live in the LA anymore.
We could ask David all about Berkeley because he had to live here for a few years.
That's right, man. I want to hear about 1992 Berkeley. Actually, there's a joke later in this that reminds me of 1992 Berkeley, but I'll get to that. We got to interview him then. Also, since the last one we did, it was confirmed in October of 2018 that they'd get a new season, which is 20 episodes. So they'll be Disenchantment until 2021 at least. We could
10 a year.
Yeah,
that's not. Come on, guys.
Lord,
let's step it up.
Crossing our fingers, we'll be watching that part 4 under a new president in that time.
When Bernie nationalizes Netflix, we'll have free Disenchantment.
Your voice to God's ears, man. That's what I say. But yeah, that part situation, it still always makes me think of like the final season of Game of Thrones, for instance, had 2 parts, which was really just like a second season. They did one more season, but I think it was in all of the contracts with the people making it that they're like, we're only signed up for 7 seasons. Okay, then season 7 is in 2 parts. How about that?
Yeah, like I think Breaking Bad did that where the last season is like 6 episodes or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and that presentation of it is just like, it's corporate doublespeak that we kind of have to get saddled with. And, but yeah, as for the like staff and everything on this, it's basically the same as in season part 1 that we talked about in that What a Cartoon. Josh Weinstein co-developed it with Matt Groening, and he brought together a ton of writers and artists who had a lot of experience on both Simpsons and Futurama, including his old partner Bill Oakley, Patrick Verone, David X. Cohen, but also young writers who are new, like Shion Takeuchi, Jenny Batten, and M. Dickinson, and also Rich Fulcher of Mighty Boosh fame.
I saw more new writers this time, less of the old Futurama Harvard crew.
Little less.
Did David Cohen write an episode, or was he just okay?
He did write
I must have missed that then.
Yes, David X. Cohen wrote the Stairway to Hell episode, the second one of part 2. Yeah,
I must have missed that credit then.
The only new writer name and credited writers in part 2 is Adam Briggs, who is a Australian comedy writer / rapper who apparently has like real rapping credit. He raps about this and he raps about that.
Wow, 2 different things. I will tell people, we said this earlier, but don't skip the credits. Don't skip intro. It's like 10 seconds long. You see who writes the show and who directs it, but also you get some nice drawings too. Original drawings.
I actually kind of I never skip intros on stuff, but sometimes I don't like seeing those images before I've seen the episode because I'm like, oh, I know that scene's going to come in there. Where will come in? Like it turns a little spoilery. So in my first viewings, I just look at the names. I don't look at the art.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah. But I mean, you should never skip an intro. Celebrate all the people who make the shows you enjoy. Look, I get it if it's an anime OP you've seen for like 70 times and it's 90 seconds long.
You can skip the Evangelion intro if you watch it once, at least.
But that's the greatest intro of all time. You're a cop if you skip that intro. That's what I say. And yeah, I think one other big change though from this season, by the end of this season, is Shion Takeuchi, one of the best writers. She wrote an episode last season. She wrote the first episode of part 2. She has since sold her own series to Netflix, so she is no longer working on the show. I would assume she's now got her own animated series.
Direct competition. Fight.
And she's working with Josh Weinstein and her old boss, Alex Hirsch, to make the show.
Okay, that sounds great.
Josh was one of many writers on Gravity Falls, and upcoming What a Cartoon on here as well.
Coming this month.
So you'll learn more about Shion Takeuchi there. But also, if The only other thing I know Adam Briggs for is him eating at Outback Steakhouse with Bill Oakley in a Bill Oakley Instagram.
Oh, that's okay. Yes.
If you remember seeing a large Australian guy doing that. I guess final thoughts on just part 2 of it. I still think they're figuring out how much they want to make it a linear show with drama and stakes versus how much they want to make it an episodic show of fun, unique sitcom situations. I still prefer, I do think they find more humor than some would with these linear stories or all these dramatic situations. But in this part 2, I still prefer the episodes that were just a unique situation that allowed the characters to explore and discover themselves, like this episode.
Yeah, I feel the same way in that they are not really clear what kind of show they're making, or maybe it's not even clear to me, and they're kind of splitting the difference between 2 types of shows, and I prefer the standalone episodes. I did like the Steamland one a lot, but even then it was just being alone in this new world and not like Elfo and Lucy or even Zog with her, just her alone by herself, and I felt like if that would have been a whole episode in that world with other characters, it would have been even more interesting.
Yeah, it was that episode. That's why that one isn't my second favorite, just because I would have liked a little more like fun comments from Elfo or Lucy experiencing that world. Maybe that was another situation of the overarching narrative they're building instead, where they only want Bean to have experienced Steamland because nobody believes her when she comes back.
That pays off with the dragon flute / gun.
Yeah,
but I guess that's an example of the storytelling getting in the way of jokes.
Yeah, that is the very challenging mission they gave themselves, that they want to have these very plot-driven things that matter, but to make that work, then you do take away your comedy arrows in your quiver at some time.
It does seem very difficult, and I sympathize with them. But I hope season 3 or season 2 season 2 part 1, whatever it's called,
sure,
whatever you want to call it. I hope that they do more exploring of the world and do more standalone sitcom-y explorations of things within Dreamland with like a point or like a parody of something or a satire of something. There was very little of that. There was very little of the show, I think, about things outside of the show, like bigger ideas where you would see those all the time on Futurama.
Yeah, I hope they commit more to that, though. I don't know. They're serving a lot of masters there. Like, I do think, who we don't know, but I think Netflix really wants those kind of cliffhangers. Netflix is built on cliffhangers, and so maybe they're just really being pushed to have that kind of linearity stuff, which, to get back to our bigger discussion of how people consume streaming content, people went to it for all these dramatic shows they watch a ton, but now what are the series that everybody is really following streaming services to? They're upset about Friends or Office or Seinfeld or Simpsons. That makes the news. These just pure comfort foods from 20 years ago that you just are like, oh God, this makes me feel better. Maybe that's the difference between the situation now and the situation 5 years ago.
Yeah, people just want their treats.
I want my treats. I don't want to be challenged with anti-heroes. Like, I've had enough of these anti-heroes.
No matter what show they make, no matter how popular it is, they can't compete with, Friends or The Office or Seinfeld or The Simpsons, these things that they're just every week a reset button was hit and that was it.
I guess, too, it was a novel concept of like, what if a person with power was bad? Now it's just like, what if? What if? It's
happening right now. We don't need to ask what if.
Yeah, that's why it felt like a real throwback. I watched the whole first season of Barry, the Bill Hader dramedy on HBO, and when it falls into like the kind of television anti-hero stuff and the kind of cliffhangers and these like these Breaking Bad type kind of moments, I think to myself like, oh, this feels really retro. Like, I guess shows can still be this, huh? Like, it's funny to go back to that, like now.
the Obama era prestige TV.
Yeah, well, because I stopped watching those kind of press after Breaking Bad. I was like, I got my fill. Like, I watched Sopranos, I watched Mad Men, I watched Breaking Bad. Walking Dead was a bridge too far. I was like, this isn't smart enough. No, I can't do it.
It was a good pilot movie, and they never made any episodes. That's how I choose to view the series.
I think the shows could use a little more brains, if you ask me.
I fear The Walking Dead.
And same like Game of Thrones. I think a thing that its fall from grace, I think, damaged my want to see bingeable prestige television as well, because it just when push came to shove and it came to the end, they didn't have their ending figured out, and it was just a mess. It was really just a mess for like the last 2 years of it, where they were just going down this path they decided on, and it was a bad path, but they couldn't change it. And so like, well, shit. And also, it just seemed to forget what was good about the show before, and everybody was just like dutifully watching it. I'm interested to see, how our favorite Simpsons and Futurama writers and artists, and actors, how they all engage with the changing way that fiction is presented these days. And Disenchantment offers that up to us.
It really does.
All right, now that we have fully discussed the overall feel of part 2 of Disenchantment, why don't we take a quick break and focus with laser-like intensity in the episode In Her Own Right.
Wherever you are, I'm sorry.
Hello? Who is this?
Alpho? Is that you?
Lady, you're the one that called me. Hello?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert. Welcome to the break, and I hope you're not listening to this smeared in your own manure.
Hey, everybody, it's Bob, and I love hot, bitter beer.
And we really love all you guys listening to this week's podcast, whether it's on What a Cartoon or our Talking Simpsons folk who get to enjoy it this week on the free feed. What a Cartoon, every week we talk about a different animated series and focus in on one of their episodes. It's a ton of fun to go through all of this animated history. And if you want to hear every episode of the show a week at a time and ad-free, you can sign up at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, and that's just the start of it.
That's right. If you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and sign up at the $5 level, you'll have access to all of our bonus podcasts. We've done a lot of bonus podcasts over the past 2+ years. And if you sign up today, you will get access to all of our mini-series, including Talking Futurama, Talking Critic, Talking of the Hill, and the upcoming this month in October will be starting Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1 just for patrons. At the $5 level, we also have a lot of other things going on, like interviews, end of season wrap-ups, community podcasts, and so much more. There's too much to mention even in this break, but we have over 100 bonus podcasts waiting for you and way more to come in the future. But just for our $10 patrons, we have extra long podcasts every month, including our longest podcast ever to date. We might one day break that record. And what is going on there at the $10 level, Henry?
Yes, for our premium patrons, they get the What a Cartoon Movie podcast for $10 a month. You'll get a monthly What a Cartoon Movie where me and Bob talk about a different animated feature film in the same hyper in-depth style as we do an episode of a TV series. But because most films are 90 minutes to 2 hours long, they end up being way longer and super deep. We just did Cowboy Bebop the movie. In October, we're doing The Nightmare Before Christmas. And in our back catalog, far too many to list, but as varied as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Kiki's Delivery Service, A Goofy Movie, Tiny Toons How I Spend My Vacation, and The Secret of NIMH. So many great animated films you can hear me and Bob talk about, with tons and tons more to come. You really get your money's worth if you sign up at the $10 level or upgrade your $5 pledge to that just to get it.
And no matter what level you sign up at, it's very easy to fit our bonus podcast in alongside of your regular free podcast in your podcasting lifestyle. What happens is you're given a code. You have access to it at any time. You drop that into whatever you use to listen to podcasts, and you can do it that way, or just use the Patreon app, which is very good and another way to access all of our bonus stuff. Either way, it's very, very easy to access all of the stuff we're doing on the Patreon levels.
So thanks so much for your support. Now, why don't we get back to the land of dreams with our deconstruction of Disenchantment. All right, we're back from the break with In Her Own Right, the 8th episode of part 2 of season 1 of Disenchantment.
And everyone out there, stop calling it Disenchanted. That's
yeah.
a different thing altogether.
You're hurting its SEO.
Yeah.
But I picked this one not just because it was written by our best friend in the world, Bill Oakley.
Oh, yeah. He's met with us on one separate occasion.
Yeah, but also because this is my favorite episode of the season, the Dreamland job, which was the heist episode. That's actually my second favorite, if just for the ear joke. That ear joke is really funny.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
But there's a lot of strong episodes in the season. I think, too, something when you binge it so fast, you don't have time to think about the episode you just saw, so you can't reflect on an episode as much. In second viewing, that's when I could really appreciate this episode just on its own, not as part of a narrative arc of 10 episodes.
Yeah, me too.
I think, too, Bill Oakley and the rest of the team who worked on this made this a very self-contained episode that just has a clever concept at the center of it that allows the characters to explore themselves and the world of Dreamland and find new aspects of the world, too, to deal with. I really like that about it. This episode is directed by Ira Chirac, who they have 5 directing credits on the entire first 20 episodes of Disenchantment. So they have directed 25% of the seasons. I looked at Ira's background, and definitely it seems like an expected pathway through the graining verse. Ira got their start as a storyboarder and then assistant director on Duckman.
Oh, no way. Okay. Well, I trust him now.
He was assistant director on a favorite episode of mine, The Amazing Colossal Duckman.
Oh, that's a great one.
One of the best, animated ones of the series, yeah. And after Duckman, he stuck around in the Klasky Chupo-verse, working as a boarder on the newer episodes of Rugrats, Real Monsters, Wild Thornberries. But then in 1999, he left the Klasky Chupo building for the bright future of Futurama.
Oh, nice.
Where he worked on the show in 1999, and then also for the return seasons as well at Comedy Central. And in between those years, he was a storyboarder on The Simpsons in 2004 to about 2006, which he then also joined Sit Down, Shut Up, where he worked under Josh Weinstein on that series.
I still have to watch that show, at least one episode.
And then he has been a director. His first pure directing credits were on shows was on Sit Down, Shut Up, and then he stayed as a director, but also doing boarding here and there on shows like Bob's Burgers and Brickleberry.
Everybody does their Brickleberry time, we've noticed.
Yeah. And then post Bob's Burgers, he moved over to Disenchantment, where he worked on the entire first season of it.
Good stuff.
Yeah, Ira's background is an interesting one. And we talked about the opening before. I never hit the skip button, but sometimes I don't like having shots spoiled in it. But I did really like the 3-color versions of those tableaus are really good.
Yeah, those should be posters, honestly.
I love, especially my favorite in this opening is the one of Bean being sad and looking down on the stage while Zog looks on. And the episode begins with a helpful series of flashbacks as Bean is having a scary nightmare, which that feels like it's building up something more. That wasn't really paid off in part 2 about the power of dreams in Dreamland.
Yeah, maybe that'll be a part 3 thing, but the king drops some lore where he says, dreams are more powerful in Dreamland. They're having the same dream about Dagmar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't really reference that again in this season. That could just be, planting seeds for the future.
Oh, I definitely think it is. What if the secret society that Oddval runs, part of that is to harness the power of Dreamland, and that's why everybody wants to take Dreamland.
I would not be surprised.
And it's a legitimately scary visual of Bean without her mouth. That's a really good shot there.
And a very cool shot of the camera sort of rotating around the bed that she's in, and really cool lighting too. Again, they couldn't do this on another Netflix show, I don't think, these ambitious shots. Or they wouldn't look as good.
Yeah. Well, and then when she wakes up, nice call back to the owl bell chimes. I like that she's like, what time is it? And 3 owls strike the bells, which does not necessarily mean it's 3 a.m., but she's like, 3 a.m.
I like how there's an owl problem in Dreamland, like in Futurama. But
just like Futurama.
I will say there is a little too much bird violence in the show.
Yeah,
so let's tone it down, gentlemen.
Well, there's violence to everything.
That's true.
They're an equal opportunity offender, Bob.
I guess that's true.
I guess you don't like your PC culture can get out of here.
I hate freedom of speech.
But yeah, actually, I guess in the next scene, 2 birds get eaten.
That's true.
Oh, good. You're still up.
I'm always up. I haven't been able to sleep for weeks. They say turkey helps, but I took 2 and nothing. Why are you awake?
More nightmares about Mom and you and me. I kept trying to talk, but I couldn't get any words out.
Uh-huh. Was your mouth sewn shut, or you didn't even have one?
I didn't even have one. How do you know so much?
There's a reason this place is called Dreamland. Something about this castle makes dreams more powerful. You can't escape your dreams, but you can stop a nightmare if you work through the issues causing it.
Wow, I wish you were this wise all the time when you were awake.
I can definitely hear that line being echoed in the future in like a flashback. Something about this castle makes dreams more powerful.
Well, and it's stated in such a straightforward, non-joke delivery way that it does feel like a flashback line that would be coming up. And like Zog has never been. I wonder if like Zog is actually talking in his sleep and seemingly awake.
That's what it seems like.
That's but I do love his joke of like he took 2 turkeys like 2 NyQuil.
God, that's a lot of turkey.
Just ate 2 full turkeys and then it has like a full Thanksgiving plate under his blanket as well.
Yeah, he pulls out more food after he falls asleep, right?
Yes, yeah. Which I mean, these jokes really speak to me as a fat guy who likes to eat in bed. It's
hopefully not whole turkeys. That's
not
that's Homer.
turkey.
That's Homer level.
I'm working my way up with pheasants.
The turkey fell behind the bed.
Oh wow, I didn't realize he was so Homeric already from the start there. Bean then, she's dealing with her pain, but there's nobody to talk to, so she leaves the castle looking for something. I like that the door just like slams behind her on her way out. Like nobody wants to hear her shit.
No, the drawbridge keeper is busy enough.
I liked how they write Bean is very self-involved. Like she's a caring person, but she was raised as royalty, so she like really doesn't think of anybody else's people.
No. She doesn't have a job or like anything to do really, so she's very self-involved.
Yeah, which there's some great jokes with that in this episode too. As she walks down the street, only in this episode viewing did I catch the great sign gaggery.
Oh yeah, there's 4 in a row. So we have Poem Depot, Berets, Bongos, and Beyond. Dreamland Ditchweed Dispensary, and my favorite was Gertrude's Steins.
That's the most clever, but I like that they just legalized ditchweed in Dreamland, but you have to go to the dispensary for it. That I like that. The
There's
story
some California
that
writers. I swear.
And Lucy's bar. It's funny that Lucy's bar is still covered in scepters, like it's still the flying scepter, even though it's his bar now.
Those are load-bearing scepters. I think they've damaged important beams and they can't be removed.
But leave it to Bill Oakley of Portland and Portlandia writing credits to introduce Dreamland's first coffee shop in this episode. Like definitely this whole section with the unique artists that are at a coffee shop definitely feels like the Portland roots of Bill Oakley coming through in this.
And instead of all working on their MacBooks, they're all working with a parchment and quill.
I love that.
That's really nice.
So clever, yes. But let's learn about this thing called coffee.
Okay, the political situation in Dreamland has really gotten me confused. First, everyone in the kingdom got turned to stone. Then we all got de-stoned. Ever since then, I've been trying to get stoned again.
This is hot.
It's supposed to be hot.
Hot, bitter beer?
It's coffee. It's a new drink. Kind of like tea, but stronger and worse.
Will it make me forget my troubles?
No, but it'll stunt your growth. I'm 23, but I still get to order off the kids' menu. Now tell Mary all about your problems.
You look really familiar, Mary.
I have another job working for people who never notice me because they're so self-absorbed. We were talking about you.
So you're saying she does show up elsewhere in other episodes.
Yeah,
I definitely noticed her in my second viewing in the castle.
I believe she appears in other episodes too. But I mean, her hair's down. That's why her hair is up in this when she's there. But usually she has one eye covered with her big frizzy hair.
I don't appreciate that coffee dish, although I am drinking green tea right now. That they put sweetener in. I said no sweetener. and it's too sweet for me. So
is this episode why you got tea instead of coffee because it was so negative towards coffee?
I'm honestly trying to cut back on coffee.
Oh, I see.
But I'm a coffee enjoyer in general. So
I hate coffee. Don't
so
like
good.
It. The only times I like coffee is how I like alcohol, which is the flavor is masked by a bunch of sugar.
I just want the richest, blackest coffee.
Which is funny though because I don't need caffeine to wake up in the morning. I do pretty all right without it, so I don't need my morning whatever. But I do like just straight green tea. I can drink. I fucks with some tea, but really though only in like if it's served at a place and it's with a meal. I don't just drink tea
with a
on
meal.
its own. Yeah,
I ended up. This is getting so nerdy, but I ended up after going to Japan. If you go to Japan and you go to like a sushi restaurant, just a restaurant in general, there's often like a little faucet of water at your table that just shoots out boiling water. I can see why they don't have that in America. We're too irresponsible. But you spoon in a little bit of matcha powder and you put it underneath the boiling water faucet. You have instant hot green tea. It's so good.
I love that so much. Yeah, but it's a responsibility that is too much for Americans. Well, I mean, a lot of stuff when you walk around Japan, you're like, well, we can't have nice vending machines like this because somebody would break it.
Yes.
Or we can't have these kinds of faucets because on the show Jackass, they just fill a bucket up with it and throw it at their friend and melt the skin off.
Those Jackass boys, yes. But again, yes, we brought it to Japan somehow with our Disenchantment podcast. We apologize.
But the coffee shop is pretty funny. The Jittery is a funny setting. Billy West, Phil Silver's voice is amazing all the time. But I love this play on his jester character because when he's on stage at the coffee shop, he gets a little more woke. So instead of just his like regular gesture, he's like the political situation.
Yeah, he's got a real like Lenny Bruce style pose to him and just sitting on the stage talking about what's happening in the news.
Oh yeah.
And smoking a cigarette, right?
Yeah. It's the Mark Maron kind of pose was what I was thinking. But yeah, it's Lenny Bruce. You're right.
Although I was wondering because wasn't there a recent thing that Netflix is like, okay, nobody can smoke on our shows from now on, and Lucy does a lot of smoking.
Yeah.
And they're smoking in this episode.
I believe they want to crack down on it more, but they also, I think, announced a loophole from the beginning of like, well, if Quentin Tarantino wants a character to smoke, if it's necessary for, I think the director just has to approve it, but also I think it's if you're famous enough, then you can do it. Like probably if you're somebody who just sold their show to Netflix and you're like, I want this character to smoke all the time, they tell you no. But
unless it's like used as a prop, an important prop.
But if you're Matt Groening, smoke away. Like that's which like they're not smoker. They're against smoking. It's the bad characters that smoke. And now it'd be vaping anyway. But they haven't done their medieval vaping joke yet in the series.
I hope there's one in season 2, part 1. There we go.
Steamland should be the home of the vaping, but boy, okay, let's pitch a joke here. What would be vaped in that situation?
What would it taste like? We need to workshop this somehow. I don't know.
I forgot to mention the talk of part 2 as well. I really did like the episode where Zog fell in love with the bear woman. It was just a sweet story for Zog. It was kind of his rebound, and I also just like her trying to deal with humanity. She's like, no, I'm actually a bear who takes off her skin and is a human, but I'm a bear first.
And I noticed in that episode that all the forks have 2 prongs in this show for some reason.
The 2-pronged forks, that hasn't been explained yet. But yes, Mary there, though, she is played by Lauren Tom, who...
Oh, okay. I didn't recognize her voice.
It's not her first appearance on the show either, though. I didn't recognize her voice in previous ones. She's disguised more because Maurice LaMarche and Billy West are doing voices they did on Futurama, but Lauren Tom really only did 2 voices on Futurama, Amy and her mom.
So like Con Jr. and Min, basically, yeah.
Honestly, the exact same thing. So in that case with Lauren Tom, she didn't do characters like Mary who have, an affected accent of some kind, but it's just like the extra plain accent, I think is what Mary does. But yeah, it's another of the many Futurama cast members there. And I thought it was a funny joke too that she tells Bean to her face that she just ignores her all day and Bean just stares at her. Just nothing. Like, I think in part 2, I really started appreciating Bean's design even more, like that shot of her not reacting to what Mary said. It's funnier because of how far apart her eyes are and how derpy she looks with her buck teeth.
I've come to appreciate the buck teeth more and more as I watch more of the show.
I think it was a really, bold design choice that really paid off for her. I think Design-wise, I might like Lucy more just a little bit, but I think she's my favorite of the designed characters of the show. 8 coffees later, Bean has quite a lot to say about her problems.
But it was all a trick. My mom had only married my dad to have me. She betrayed both of us, and I still feel so bad because she's my mom, you know? And my dad, he can barely.
You see, this is why most people only have 1 or 2.
Admit she existed. But me, I just keep having these nightmares.
Because you're bottling up your feelings, dig?
What else can I do?
Express them. What do you do for fun? Besides get drunk.
No, I did that because I was drunk. No, I did that to get drunk. I am open to your suggestions.
Well, there's art, music, wearing weird clothes you make yourself. This is Judy, by the way.
Sup?
Basically, anything that lets you work through feelings and heal. You know, creativity.
Creativity?
Look around you. All of these people are expressing themselves.
This is all really impressive, but I don't have any talent, so...
Do you have hands?
Yeah.
Can you hold a pen?
Yeah.
Then you're a writer.
And I already got a head start with the drinking.
That's true.
I do think I selfishly wanted this episode too because it's all writer jokes.
Well, I thought of it, and I thought also watching this episode that until recently, I had been writing for like 19 years professionally with constant deadlines. Now I don't do that anymore. I don't miss it at all. I've done enough writing.
I've written enough words. I have pushed myself to write all these words. I was reflecting on that today of like, oh yeah, I guess I probably wrote 1,000 articles that were posted on the internet. At least 500. At least 500.
Yeah, I have to be. I think I wrote like a book's worth of text every month when I was working on a website. Just like 2 articles a day, often like 800 words.
And I never
article.
want anyone to read it again. Like,
I'm on the fence. Some of my stuff you still can read, but I'm also publishing a book that's not Vanity Press. I'll tell you more about that soon.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
But so yeah, and we've both already got a head start on the drinking. But
that's true.
But I think I did like this one too because it felt like Bill Oakley is saying a lot about the profession of being a writer in this episode.
Yeah, and I like it in that it's more about a thing. It's not about the characters of the world. It's making a comment about a thing.
Yeah, I guess though too, it is a Homer gets a job type episode too. Yeah.
But they don't do that too often on this show yet.
I like too that Bean, the way they explain being a writer of like, she says, well, I have no talent. I have no discernible talent. She's like, well, you can hold a pen, right? Then you're a writer.
Yeah.
A writer is somebody who is talentless but can write things down.
Going back to complaining about our old job, I often think that's what executives thought of us. It's like, yeah, how hard is it to write? Right. See, I just wrote a sentence. Who cares? Make 1,000 of those and give it to me.
I sent you an email. I wrote things down there. It took a second. Why can't you write like 7 things a day? It's easy. Boom. Yeah, it's the cheapening of writing that is hell on earth.
They don't think about all the self-punishment that comes into writing.
Yeah, or also all the drinking, the cinnamon buns. That was also really good acting on Abby Jacobson there, like her very speedy saying of things.
It reminded me of like the drug-fueled rant she had.
Yeah.
In episode 3, part 1.
I think she binge drank coffee like it was beer, so she drank 8 coffees instead of slowly sipping on one. Like that is too much coffee, man.
And beer is her default beverage.
Yeah, I also like her explaining of drinking, of just like Bean is slowly realizing she has a drinking problem, that every night she drinks, every story of her life is drinking. She makes other people drink with her because she's alone. Like, there should be an intervention episode of the show, but then it's less funny. Well, that, on a show like Futurama or Simpsons, they don't really solve these problems or have arcs for this, but on a linear show that is about, a story from A to B, there should be a moment where she's like, I guess I do drink too much, or like this is a character thing to be solved.
Yeah, and then, we're just pitching story ideas now, but then you could do a joke about like, what is a 12-step program like in this medieval world?
I love that, yeah. Oh, man.
I'm a writer now.
Because in the 12-step program, you have to like, give
apologize
yourself up to
people,
God.
yeah.
Well, give yourself up to God, like so, or a higher power. So what does that represent in Dreamland? Bean has decided she's going to be a writer, and she has such great helpers as she writes.
So, what are we writing?
It's something personal. I suppose you can stay and watch, though. Here I go. When I was young, I overheard a conversation between my father and...
No.
What?
No, nothing. I was going to say something, but then I was like, you know what? I don't think it's fixable, so maybe just go ahead.
What's wrong with it?
Nothing's wrong with it, really, other than, just being bad. But go on.
Ugh! Stop talking.
Are you sure that's the right word? I think you're conflating confusing with conflating. It's confusing, but...
I don't like that part either.
Ugh!
Wait, we're your biggest fans. Quit shoving. Come on.
I can help you. You ever heard of a writer's demon?
I can also help. Ow! Oh, come on. There's nothing to criticize out here. Although this door is hideous.
So I think with Elfo there, they really make him extra whiny and annoying in this episode, too.
Yeah. Bean is making a common mistake that first writers always make in that they write about themselves, or they will write a main character who is themselves but better, and they will write every argument that they lost in real life except that they win.
Some writers like Aaron Sorkin never outgrew that.
No, and it's the same like 8 arguments.
Yeah, just like, actually, sir. Yeah, but she's just getting started as a writer. It's a common mistake we all made. I think too, though, she's trying to work through a memory she doesn't fully grasp, which, who knows, maybe that'll come up more in the future, like that there's some big reveal in that lost memory. But
I also like the joke where Elfo says they're her biggest fans after being ushered out of the room and insulting her.
Yes, yeah. I love that he's so, he's the bad critic for so much of this episode. I really love that they give all those lines to Elfo, that he's somebody on Twitter is what he is, who's also criticizing it as it's being written, who's just like, it can't even be fixed. Just go on. I don't care.
And the thing that's very subtle that I like is that Bean's motivation is spite.
Yeah, that's the greatest. Yeah.
Before anything is written, the words "I'll show you" are said out loud or in someone's head.
My main drive for writing a lot of things was anger at somebody thinking I couldn't do it. Like that spite willed me through a lot of things, which as I got older, I learned like I really needed to find a different drive as a writer than just proving someone wrong or being pissed off about it. But I don't think I ever really did. So that doesn't drive me as a podcaster, proving someone wrong. It's just my love of saying things and being heard.
I like opinions and having them.
Yeah. The podcasts are hot take machines, but yeah, I think another reason I really like this episode is that Lucy kind of gets back to his roots by becoming a writer's demon. Like scenes with just Lucy and Bean where Lucy is making Bean feel bad or kind of needling her in directions. I really like those moments with the character. Like,
yeah, it's his original role was to, to corrupt her.
Yeah.
And to be her personal demon. And
he, as a writer's demon, he is representing the voice that's in all our heads when we're writing, which this next clip is just also well observed.
So, writers have demons?
Oh, yeah. Most of them have dozens.
And the demons help with writing?
Sure. We also cause depression, self-doubt, insomnia, suicide, and drug addiction. The writer's life.
I don't know.
You're no writer anyway. Nobody gives an elf's ass what you got to say about your trite little life.
Up yours. Yes, I am.
Huh?
Okay, you can stay.
The problem is now after you become successful, the people who you want to laugh in their face, they can't be found.
Yeah.
They're not even on Facebook.
It's annoying. You can't shove it in their face as easily as
you called me a nerd. Now I'm a nerd people know about. Some people.
Take that. But I guess that is the better revenge is like they're so unknown you can't even find them on Facebook.
Yeah, I have to assume they're in prison or dead.
Or, parents who don't tweet about their kids, which that's like a living death.
That's the way to be, I think.
But yes, the writer's demon bit, it's a really fun just little montage of him pushing her, like letting her know she needs to procrastinate more, that she's earned a nap. Like that's the feeling in the back of your head of like, I want to eat something or take a nap. I want to do anything other than writing. God, the greatest feeling in the world is I finished writing something. Now I can do nothing for just a little bit.
When I was writing longer form things, I would often find ways to reward myself to keep me going. It's like, okay, you wrote for 20 minutes. Now it's 5 minutes of Twitter time. Just like, it's all about finding a reward system that works. And hopefully hopefully it doesn't destroy you. So it wasn't food for me. Thankfully, it was Twitter, which could be worse. But
that's why you're a skinny writer. That's why.
That's true.
That's I mean, remember in Adaptation where he is arguing with himself, Kaufman is, about whether he's earned a muffin yet.
Yeah.
That's the eternal battle of a writer, which is very like fat and boring. but that's
there
what
are
I
skinny,
love about
boring
this.
writers too.
But yeah, Bean is having writer's block with her content. She is suggested to write erotic fairy tale fan fiction, which it's a cute little idea. And then I love the hate on one-woman shows, which, spoilers, she then basically does a one-woman show at the end of the episode.
Hey, one-man shows are bad too. I mean, we rarely praise Family Guy, but they did a very funny one-man show thing.
I can't make fun of one-man shows without just doing the bit from Family Guy. Like, oh, I didn't see you there.
Yeah.
And old man Jenkins used to say.
There's also a very, very funny joke in Tim and Eric's Bedtime Stories. One of them is about these two awful characters who live together in L.A., and that's the horror of it. And it ends with Tim as the character putting on a one-man show that's awful, and no one goes to it.
I got to see this. I haven't seen this.
You got to watch the Bedtime Story series. It's on Hulu.
Well,
it's
now
really
it's
good.
October, the perfect time for it.
They're really, really good.
And so as she's having writer's block, she then decides to write a play because that's easier than describing the sunset. And so she's going to make a play about her mother and father. And she needs to go to Zog to help with her memories.
So, why are they ripping out all the tulips?
Oh, I'm putting in an archery range. I wanted a form of exercise that was mostly standing still.
Sounds great. Okay, so one time you told me how you proposed to Mom. Was it?
I don't remember.
I didn't even ask the question yet.
What's past is past. And I'm not interested in reliving it.
But Dagmar was part of your life. I mean, both our lives for almost 20 years. We can't just pretend that never happened.
I'm king. I can do whatever I want.
Like hide in the tool shed until I go away?
Maybe.
Oh, God. You can't even do a DiMaggio impression because he's lived so differently than us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the noises. They're so great. And it was upon my second viewing that I just realized, oh, yeah, Dagmar's big beehive looks just like a tulip. Like that's
right.
the metaphor they're going for there.
Is her beehive also supposed to be a Marge thing? A mom with a beehive?
Perhaps. I think she's hiding something within that beehive.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, she lets her hair down in other times.
True.
But
could be to hide a machine gun to fight mummies.
But tulips are a big theme in this episode, I guess you'd say. They keep popping up. But the one, he's joke about an exercise that's mostly standing still. But two, the way he just like the comedy pacing of how the statue squishes him and then he gets out from under and then just like kicks it down a hill. So funny.
We'll see that statue again later in this episode.
Just like great timing to all of that. And it's also a really good shot of him when he storms off to hide in the tool shed. It's a really good shot of him angry, and then when he walks away, it reveals his old happy statue behind him. Like,
that's right.
Really artistic.
He's framed in front of it at first.
Bean doesn't let that get her down, and she pushes herself on to write the scenes without any help from her dad. And we get to hear Abby do a really good or fun impersonations of John DiMaggio and Sharon Horvath.
I did like hearing those. Yeah.
You wound me, wife. Your heart is as if gripped by ice.
I am gripped by purpose higher than thy petty worldly concerns.
Thou art but one fallen horseman in a grand battle waged far beyond your understanding. To fall in battle is merely one death. To fall in true love's betrayal is 100 score. Exit stage right, end scene.
Bravo! A heartbreaking work of average to moderate genius.
A dramatic tour de force it was.
I've never been permitted to sit down for this long.
Nah, I was really hoping for more of a medical thriller.
Terrific work. First rate. Want to celebrate with a little suicide?
No!
Just doing my job.
So, where does your script go now? Rubbish bin? Outhouse?
Well, I think it should be performed on stage. It's quite brilliant. But what do I know? Not much, really.
Oh man, I love her.
Bunty's
And
the best.
That's all you get from her in this season.
Yeah.
I really wish they remembered her. So you get a lot of the side characters in the scene. It made me miss them even more when you don't see much more of them.
Yeah, especially when Bean moved in with Bunty last season, that was so funny. And also with the executioner played by Noel Fielding, also from The Mighty Boosh. He's really great. And he's and just hearing Merkimer again. Like Matt Berry's voice is the greatest. It's just this thin God. He's
so stuck up.
Him on What We Do in Shadows is so great.
Yeah,
but I think he must have moved to America finally, and just that's why he's in everything now. He's no longer a slave to the BBC's 4 episodes of television every 2 years.
Those are some good episodes, though.
They
have time to polish all of them.
Him on Gareth Marenghi's Dark Place, fucking
I
the
forgot
greatest.
I need to rewatch that.
Yeah. Oh, God. Honestly, that should be one of our live action shows that we do, but someday in the future. I also like Elfo being, again, a terrible critic in that what he dislikes about it is that it's not a different genre.
Yeah.
That's exactly what writers hate about critics, where they're like, you're mad at my work for what it isn't. Like, judge it on its own merits.
And on the second viewing, I did notice that Mary is in the room.
Yes.
Not with no speaking role or anything. She's
I
just
didn't
there.
catch it in first viewing either. I think it's something I fear with the show when it's so like a narrative arc that you don't watch reruns all the time like we did with Simpsons and Futurama to really pick up on all these details, because you're just like, well, no, I binged through it. It's time to it's totally disposable now that I binged it.
I feel people have that attitude now where it's like, oh, my plate's clean, time for the next plate, and you go on to the next 10 episodes of Glow or whatever.
You feel like you can finally watch something else, like, phew, I finished that. Now I can get to my next responsibility of viewing something. And the reference to heartbreaking work of staggering genius is what he's bringing up.
I read that book, but I'm so over those kinds of books now.
Well, Dave Eggers has had a life, Bob.
I know.
Come on.
I'm living his life right now in Berkeley.
Exactly. We both are. It was I read 1/3 of it and then kind of got bored. It's a lot of pages. I'm not much into this reading thing. But it was fun to read at least the first third of it while living in Berkeley, because it's about him and his brother moving to Berkeley after like the heartbreaking death of their parents. Which
it's a good English majory book to read if you're in college and you want to look smart. Put on a nice sweater and read that book in public.
It really is for white men who want to feel things about stuff. Like it's it lets you know that, like, well, my alienation matters too. But it was an interesting. I did not expect a Dave Eggers reference there.
Yeah, it's nice.
But man, Bunty laughing about all of her jokes about her serfdom are all so funny.
And her having no confidence, like, what do I know? Nothing really.
And that she just, like, all she knows how to do is work endlessly and laugh about it, and like how her children die all the time.
I love that episode about her in the first part. It was really good.
Yeah. And just how much Bean doesn't see her as Bean likes her, but doesn't understand what horrible life she lives.
The joke about she's never sat down for that long and she's moved to tears. Very dark, but I love it.
And Merkimer, he could be used more. He gets used more this season than he did last season. I like him being ridden around by Fip and Fap in that one episode as well.
I think in the first season he just sort of runs off really, right, for a while.
Yeah. And then comes back with the Giantess and then kind of disappears again. But Merkimer, I didn't know this until this viewing, that his crown is supposed to look like Jughead's. It has the red circle and the green rectangle on it are exactly like the pins on Jughead's crown as well.
The vision of a pig in a crown is pretty nice. It's just a funny image.
With that voice coming out of it, it's just God. And he's so used to being a pig now. He just kind of loves it.
He's used to being covered in shit.
He's very used to it. Bean follows Bunty's advice, goes to the theater to try to put it on. She then finds out that no women are allowed in the theater as like a mime and a person delivering a bunch of cats for some reason. I would assume to kill cats for something.
I want it to be a cat balancing act.
But they don't allow her in, and that's when she learns the sexist reality of old school theater, which is based on the real practice of that women, all the parts were played by men back then.
I thought this was going to be a Shakespeare in Love parody at first, and I'm really glad that they didn't do that.
I totally forgot about that.
Oscar winner.
I'm really glad. One of Harvey Weinstein's greatest successes is an Oscar campaign. But yes, Bean isn't so happy to learn this truth.
Women aren't allowed to work in theater.
I know you must be disappointed, Bean, but what did you expect? Like war and beauty contest judging, theatre is the noble work of men.
That's ridiculous. There's no reason women can't do theater.
It's a slippery slope. What's next? Male cows? You know, I myself have been known to tread the boards.
Oh, real boards?
In my days at Twinkletown University, I was the toast of the annual Follies. My fans, stunned by my talent, showered me with homemade bricks and fresh ripe tomatoes. Ah, bygone days, the most glorious time of my life. Hello. I understand women are prohibited from working in the theatre.
Yep.
How about pigs?
Come on in.
I must warn you, I am smeared in my own manure.
I said, come on in.
Good joke.
I love
Everyone
the little
is.
oinking as he answers too.
Yeah. He's relishing being a pig.
Yeah, he loves it. He loves it now. I mean, when he returned in the start of part 2, he announces that he's been having sex with other pigs too. So he's pretty into this pig life now.
Pig life.
I love how he remembers being showered with homemade bricks and fresh ripe tomatoes.
Yeah, he's reading that differently than he should.
And also another great line: like war and beauty contest judging, theater is the noble work of men.
That could be my line of the show. If we had a What a Cartoon line of the show.
Yeah.
I do like his stilted hello. It's cut off.
Yeah, it is really good. Just he wants people to know I'm smeared in my own manure. It's how, which comes back to when in the next scene Bean kisses him. She's like, ew. She tasted
There's another guy smeared with something in this episode. In the jittery.
She's not even sure what that is. She finds out though that he said the play was his and that he gives her the money for it, which it's a good little joke about how entitled Lucy is that she's like, you can't pay me with me.
Her face is right on the money. I do like his sad getting kicked out of the window.
That's the greatest. Yeah, I love that too. And also it's a real Bender move by Lucy to grab the coin.
Oh yeah, and run away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it almost needs a giggling, a John DiMaggio giggling as he leaves.
He can't put the coins to his compartment though. Bender would.
That's true. He lacks a compartment. But yes, as Bean finds out she's got her name taken off of her work, Elfo has some questions.
Fortunately, I got them to give me something far more valuable than cash. The starring role.
Whoa, you're starring as me? My character's the star of the play.
I had to make a few adjustments. Sad.
Bean?
What?
I have a question. Don't throw me out the window.
That's not a question.
Don't throw me out the window? Also, I have a second question. I could go down to the theater and be your little spy.
That's not a question either. I think someone tiny's going out the window. I hate you guys!
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. I like the design on her window too. We've been seeing that for a while, but how it opens in like a jagged pane instead of a straight, square or whatever.
Yeah, I do like that. I don't know, like the shot you see of the castle of Dreamland reminds me a lot of Planet Express, like the CGI shot of like rotating around the castle and then like just zooming into it. They're shaped similarly too. I don't know. I'm just getting a Planet Express vibe from the establishing shots.
I think you're right. I think you're definitely right. Also, there's a model of the Planet Express ship in Steamland as well.
Oh, you're right.
They're hitting it hard in those episodes.
Hope Disney doesn't see that. The makers of Futurama.
Yeah, I guess they are Futurama owners now. Boy, if they were ever hoping to do a crossover, I think they thought they had a friendlier people with Fox than Disney.
Yeah.
Fox was more ready to work with a Netflix show, while Disney is ready to put Netflix out of business, is what they intend to do.
Yeah, they're trying to destroy it actively.
I mean, they should honestly, they should be thinking in the long term of like, let them put a Futurama character in there. We'll own it eventually anyway.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, all of you out there need to decide which corporation do I root for?
You got to pick your brands here.
And fight online for their honor.
It's funny, right now I'm wearing a wrestling t-shirt of my favorite billionaire, Tony Khan, who's way better than the billionaire Vince McMahon.
I'm wearing a Thimbleweed Park t-shirt my girlfriend drew.
You're talking about the big bed you sleep in with your wife.
I'm sorry.
Merkimer is happy with his ill-gotten credit, which is then instantly stolen from him by the director of the play. And then it's a bit of a corny dad joke, but I do like him saying, like, I'm a leading ham. It's corny, but still.
The director, Wyman Petty, who does not survive this episode.
Yeah, he doesn't make as much of a mark as some characters that get killed off. So
I love the very Futurama-y wordplay where the guy dies because of the lead paint.
Oh, yes.
And I've seen this before, death.
Yes, here, let's hear about the death of an actor.
Action! The poets Noah wrote of pleasures so sublime. My glorious kingdom, a feast for my eyes. My glorious bride, a branch for my soul. For my soul.
Cue Dagmar.
Ah!
Get a doctor, now!
I've seen this before. Death.
The finest actor of his generation struck down at his first rehearsal.
I think maybe it was the lead makeup.
That's what you always say. Now take off his clothes and throw his corpse in the alley. Don't forget the wig.
Woe is me. Who shall be my Dagmar now?
Wow, I didn't see that coming.
That really was the status of actors at this time. It's like, not even a pauper's grave for you. We just throw your corpse into the alley.
Your nude corpse into the alley. They're not putting clothes back on him. They're just like, well, we need that costume for the next actor, so chuck him in the alley. Also, that they say that it's his first rehearsal, too, so they just pick somebody. It's not surprising they pick Elfo, who also has no experience, to be at. Is that lead makeup a Wizard of Oz reference as well?
Oh, you know what it could be? Buddy Epson almost died.
Yes, yeah.
The original Tin Man, right?
Yes, and they recast him and got better paint for the next Tin Man. But yeah, but Buddy Ebsen would go on to his own success as a rich oil baron.
Yes,
fictional
Jed
one.
Clampett,
Yes.
America's hero.
But yeah, I really love Elfo's thinking that that's part of the play, that the actor dies on stage. So then they put up the poster advertising the show, which causes a bit of a stir. If I had a critique of the plot of this episode, I think there could have been a scene where the theater troupe accepts that they're doing a controversial play, or they're like, oh, we should be speaking truth to power with this controversial play or whatever, because doing a play about the king is asking for trouble. That's why, like, the stories of Shakespeare were some one-off character or some line is really him critiquing somebody powerful, but through a secondary character so people don't know it. But if it's the actual person you're casting, then you're getting in trouble.
It's a bioplay in a way. But yeah, I think, they're kind of building towards the last episode with these scenes with Oddval and the lady priestess whose name I forget, where we hear about their secret society and things disrupting a plan. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're too focused on that to give us more of the theater troupe, which are there other actors in this troupe?
There's much more treachery for Oddval too in this than we'd seen before. He didn't seem all that antagonistic to Bean until the end of this season.
Actually, so I forgot Oddval's name. So I looked it up on Wikipedia, and the entry was like, Oddval is a character in Disenchantment and one of the primary antagonists. I was like, antagonists? So it did spoil the end for me.
This kind of does build up where we end up with him in the last episode, where he is partially into this is introducing the stricture, the sexism of the world that won't allow Bean to be the queen in later episodes. And so this kind of sets it up while also showing that Oddval is scheming as well.
Yeah.
I do like the lines that people can't read the poster, but they like the squiggles. But Oddval thinks it is it's smut and not even religious smut. And that nose
Secular
is touching.
smut.
Yeah, and nose is touching is a pornographic image for them.
It's a real grope fest.
When I listen back to the sounds, the woman in the Secret Society, that is Tress doing her Ma voice from Futurama.
It's very close.
I'd say 20 years younger Ma.
Yeah. She's got a real dial on the old lady voice.
And also, Oddball, he calls back to Zog punching him the many times he punches him in the show.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He's been punched 5 times today, he says. So instead, he sends a messenger, which instantly is killed. And I like, that's a clever guy.
Yeah, often like a shot of a corpse is a punchline. Like you're told a joke and then you see a shot of like a head on a pike or a corpse or a dead body. And that's the punchline in Disenchantment.
Zog is like Bender and Homer together, except he kills 3 people an episode at the very least. But it was a different time.
Yeah, our laws didn't apply.
Utterly scandalous. Well, it can't even be called theater.
Nothing but made-up hoo-ha to distract peasants from their miserable lives.
But that's what religion is for.
What it is treason. They make a laughingstock of the royal family, the kingdom, and most important, you, your majesty.
Me? They're mocking me? What did I ever do?
Aside from the yelling and the stabbing and the slapping and the gouging and the name-calling, absolutely nothing, sire.
I want to see it with my own eyes. Where do I see it?
The theater, 8 p.m. tonight.
The theater? All right, but I'm bringing my bow.
Good shot, sire. Right in the spleen. A command performance?
Yes. Your next, and presumably final, show will be attended by the king. He will render judgment as to whether this production is treasonous, and then pronounce sentence.
Oh, okay, so no big deal. What's the sentence for treason? Couple of light slaps in the bum-bum? Because I don't think I can handle that.
I think the story about Elfo getting hit on the bum by his father, which was improv, we were told by Josh Weinstein, I think that was one of the standout moments of part 1. So it's referenced a few more times in part 2.
Yeah, bum has become his catchphrase for Elfo. I mean, it's funny that he just that's what he calls his butt, his bum, and that is
and getting a few slaps on the bum.
That is the ultimate endangerment. That he's I like when wussy Elfo comes out, though. Also, like he said, sometimes they kind of go in and out of is Elfo afraid of a small slap on his bum, or is he someone who has already died and doesn't fear death anymore?
I think he's just traumatized from the bum punishment his dad gave him.
But he's been to heaven.
That's true.
Did you notice that God? I didn't notice this until I looked at the trivia. That God has 4 fingers in this world. It's the reverse of The Simpsons.
I think everyone in this show has 4 fingers.
No. Everybody's got 5 fingers. It's a 5-finger show.
Okay. That's what you mean. Okay, yeah.
So God has 4 fingers. And everyone else has 5.
Okay.
While on Simpsons, God has 5 fingers and they all have 4.
Except when they screwed up.
Yes, yeah.
But no, I didn't notice that at all. Yeah, everyone in the show does have 4 fingers and a thumb.
And they actually show God's face. Well, not really, but they're not trying to cut around the face of God like they do in The Simpsons. It's just a glowing light. All voiced by Phil Lamar, which I like him hanging out with Jerry. That's really cute. But
Jerry got a good end.
But yes, Elfo doesn't realize he's going to die, and pretty much his death is on the way. And we then get a shot of them preparing for heading out. Zog is drinking as he's also seeing a tulip, which I think Dagmar or somebody is placing those tulips in his room to drive him crazy. I think the season finale kind of confirms she's hiding in Dreamland. So
yeah, you're right. You're right, because they fall underground and she's there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I did like the joke about the opera glasses.
That was funny.
It was a really snappy joke.
Yeah, I think the pacing, it's a clever idea of let me get my opera glasses. It's 2 glasses of beer, but the pacing of it happens so fast. If you're given too long to think about it, you think well, obviously he doesn't mean real opera glasses. He's going to have a drinking glass, right? And so it's about the speed and execution of it too, which I think they pulled off real well. As the play is about to begin, Bean is sad.
This is so frustrating. I've got to be the only writer in the world who has to sit around helplessly while idiots ruin all my hard work.
Then why are we here? You could be around the corner at my bar.
Because I love this drink. This bitter drink.
All right, people, it's that time again. Amateur night. Please give a tepid, jittery welcome to a newcomer. We call her Freckles behind her back. My new friend Bean.
What? No way.
Do it. 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 Do it.
Right, shut up.
There's a guy, that guy pops up later, the unseen guy who's late to the party on What's Happening.
That's like the droopy voice from Simpsons.
You mean?
But I fucking love that line. Like, I have to be the only writer in the world who sits around helplessly as idiots ruin my hard work.
Spoken like a TV writer.
Oh yeah. I love that line. And that also they bring back Lucy's classic "Do It" from the first season, but everybody joins in. It's got to be nice for Bean, like she actually has a community supporting her. And I like too that Mary thinks that like the setup of the line is you think she's going to say, we call her Freckles as a nickname, except she's like behind her back when they call her Freckles.
She knows now.
Not that she really listens to anybody else, but that's a really like a good friend kind of thing that Mary is pushing her to get on stage and still finally perform like she wants to.
I wish we would see more of her. I think Bean needs more non-weirdo friends.
Yeah, and women friends.
Yeah,
I think...
Well, what is Lucy at the end of the day?
Her only friends in life are those two, and then the only woman friend she really talks to is Bunty, who is her slave.
Yeah.
Or serf.
Not considered a person by Bean, probably.
Certainly not. So then we see Zog arrive at the play. He's just talking over everything, which I love. Just him. God, Zog is just the rude asshole. It's so great. And you get to see Fip and Fap bringing his milk duds. I like that too.
Or duds du lait.
Yes.
The French milk duds.
Oh, man. That made me want some teeth ripping out milk duds.
Oh, man. If you got fillings, it's going to be a big silver party in your mouth.
That's the tastiest part of a milk dud is tasting metal inside of it.
It's a prize.
I liked too when the play begins that you get to see how the background works, like the guys pulling the levers and moving it around.
It's nice to see the primitive stage tech.
Yeah, that shows. It reminds me of how in Futurama when they'd want to show how they'd come up with a crazy thing, but they'd also want to show more practicality of how it works. Same here of like, well, yeah, we could just draw the moving waves and the waterfall and everything, but let's show the guys actually moving the pedals and how much work it takes to get it. The star of the play comes up on stage and everybody just laughs at the idea of a talking pig. Yeah. They're disturbed at first and they're like, oh, a talking pig.
It's a real audience of rubes, but the king is there.
Yes, yeah. Which it comes later, but God, that Zog doesn't understand that a pig dressed just like him is supposed to be him.
In a play about him.
That they told him was about him too. But before we get to that, we've got quite a big speech from Bean here once she gets on stage.
Yeah, what I really like is this. So the animators were just given a very long monologue, but all of her poses are so interesting and good and well done.
Oh yeah, they really met the challenge of being given all this audio.
I hate Dreamland. I hate the overflowing plague pits. I hate how when it's the end of the night and you're completely drunk and you've got to stagger home, it's uphill all the way. But you know what I don't hate? Most of you. I believe deep down underneath all that dirt and sweat and grease and mud and whatever is all over you, sir, that you guys are kind and decent. You just do misguided things, like abandoning your babies in the enchanted forest. They're not gonna survive. We're like betting on elf versus squirrel wrestling, like to the death. Is that what we really want to watch? Guys, the squirrel always wins. Do you know how much money I've lost just thinking that I'm gonna witness the first time that an elf beats a squirrel? It's never gonna happen. But we watch it again and again. It's not a fair fight. And you know what else is not fair? The fact that I'm up here on this dinky little stage talking to you, but I can't go across the street to perform the play that I wrote. It's going on right now in front of an adoring, sophisticated audience.
I like the metaphor. The futility of life is like watching elves wrestle squirrels.
Yeah, that tiny squirrels can overpower most elves. That's why it was so. I honestly felt it was a little silly when they did the Elfo badass scene that he's able to kill all those giants. That was really weird.
Maybe squirrels have like advanced elf fighting tactics we don't know about.
Well, though Elfo's not pure elf, so maybe it's he's got some unnatural strength from whatever else he is. Yeah, like you said, the posing, man, I think really her delivery, Abby's, really reminds me of a lot of her speeches she gave in Broad City.
Yeah.
And I think they took, the animators took a lot of those poses of like how she's like, I can't go over there and puts her arms to the side to over here. Like she it really punctuates those bits. My favorite posing on it is her bits where she's the moments where she's talking about how she's on stage there instead of across the street.
I mean, it's a real challenge to be given a minute worth of dialogue and the character can't leave one area. She has to stay in the same position, basically. Like, how do you move her around in an interesting way? And they did a really good job.
And yes, that the cut to everybody booing, and they're asking Merkimer if they can show us his teats. He then resets with pig shrieking, which I will not hurt your ears with.
It was a good shriek.
Oh yeah. But it's I almost wish, like, well, poor Merkimer, all he wants is a little respect as an actor. Meanwhile, backstage, Elfo is not in his makeup yet, so they very cruelly dip him in a bucket of lead paint. Though I guess Elfo is not allergic to it because he does not die.
He gets a pumpkin.
He gets handed a pumpkin to pretend to be pregnant, and he walks out on stage as he shares his scene.
Like a tree in bloom, my love now sprouts anew. Dagmar is pregnant.
Lo, I am ripe with our blissful union. Witness, my king.
Come on, Dagmar never wore lipstick like that.
I pray this be a daughter as fair as thou. We shall call her Tiabini, and she shall make a fine princess. Or maybe she'll make a nice pie instead.
Hey, wait a minute. That pig with a crown is supposed to be me? And for an encore, you're all getting your heads chopped off.
I don't know if we said this in the first episode of this we did, but there's a bit of Archie Bunker in there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we mentioned it, but I'm hearing it in for an encore.
Yeah, you're right. That is, it's the same kind of like New York-y grouch working class type guy. Yeah.
But, Merkimer, good at improv.
Yeah. I like.
He rolled with it.
Totally rolled with it. Yeah. Make a fine pie. The way he looks at the audience too, as the pumpkin explodes. It's so great that Zog just finally realizes it at that moment. And that he kills so easily and doesn't care. As we'll see later, he doesn't give a shit that he kills people.
He's not even there for the execution. You think he'd want to watch.
But that's funny that an execution is happening while he has a heart-to-heart reconnection with his daughter, which I think this is the dream of most writers, that your art can connect you with a parent.
This is sheer fantasy. Forget about the elves and the magic.
If my father were to read my writing ever and reflect upon it, that would be more fantastical than a million dragons.
Frankly, it's unbelievable.
My dad told me there's a reason they call it Dreamland. And for once, he was right. Because whenever I fall asleep, it's nightmares about my evil mom. Turns out, Una was the cool one. You never appreciate your lizard stepmom until she becomes a sexy pirate, am I right? Remember you all got turned to stone?
Yeah, Una did it.
No, that was Dagmar.
Yeah, Dagmar said Una did it.
Dagmar was a liar. My whole life, I just wanted her to be there, but it turns out the best mothering I ever got was from a fat guy with a red mustache.
She's whining about her dad.
My dad was right. You can't escape your dreams. But when I fall asleep tonight, whatever happens, I'm gonna fight back.
I don't know what the joke is, but I did laugh a lot at the person observing she's whining about her dad.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know if there's an extra joke to it or not, or it's just about a person in the audience going like, "Oh, I know what you're talking about."
It's the that's Chappie of this episode.
A tweet for the ages, that one. That too, that you get to see that the villagers don't know about the overall narrative of the series. They're like, "Yeah, we all got turned stone. It was Una. She did that."
I don't know if the writers are commenting like, we have to make you care about this, but even our characters are sort of like, that happened?
Yeah, who is that? I don't remember. Yeah, also, it's a nice journey that Bean goes through in the episode, that she starts it afraid of her dreams, and at the end of this, she's got a new resolve that she's not going to be scared of her nightmares. She's going to be ready to fight. I like that too. It's a heartfelt ending that even with something as a little sappy as a slow clap from the audience.
Yeah.
But yes, she reconnects with her father as beheadings are happening in this happy headless ending.
What are you doing here, Dad?
Bean, you're pretty good with words up there on the thing.
Oh, Dad, that doesn't mean much, but it means a lot.
You know, this puts me in a good mood. I'm thinking maybe I'll call off the execution.
What? I thought we were gonna have a happy ending tonight. Oh, man. Wait! Don't chop! The king has changed his mind.
Ah, well, no harm done. Cheer up, Elmo. We have vindication from no less an authority than the king himself. Our show shall go on.
Oh, boy.
Ugh, Dad, don't you hate it that it's uphill all the way home?
Yeah. Wow, that guy isn't lucky.
The head rolls by. Yeah. Yeah, I did love how Elfa wants to die instead of put on the play.
I love that. He was only doing the play to be a spy for Bean, just because he's a sycophant, and now he's going to be forced to do it again. And yeah, he almost died. I love the executioner just like, no, I'm done. Like you just chopped his head off.
We lost that character though. Who knows how
Yeah.
funny he could have been.
It's pretty brutal. The director got his head cut off, but he was a sexist jerk. So,
And he did steal all the glory.
Yeah, so they made him just unlikable enough that you don't feel too bad at his incredibly unfair death, all because of the tyranno. I mean, this is definitely an anti-monarchy show. For
Yeah,
sure.
it is.
That's just the point of it all. Like, monarchs are bad. They should probably not exist. Fortunately, nothing like that exists now. Nope.
In America, nothing can possibly go wrong.
I like, still though, they call Elfo Elmo. That's
Yeah,
so nice.
Elmo.
But even they really have their cake and eat it too with having a heartfelt reconnection while also a head rolls by.
A man the king murdered, his head rolls by.
But it did get me a little it got me a little verklempt seeing her and her parent connect over the same kind of observation.
I do like their reconnection in this season, even if I'm not a fan of the more episode to episode sort of storytelling. I do like the gradual, reunion of the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that was a pretty good episode of Disenchantment, of a generally pretty good season where I still think they're figuring out the kinks of exactly what they want the show to be.
Yeah, and I think more people should watch it. I'm not seeing a lot of chat about it. And with the first season, I talked to a lot of people a lot of people would ask us about it because we do a Simpsons podcast, but I found a lot of people would watch just the first episode or the first two and not go from there. I say there's 20 now. And they're really easy to go through. I say watch it if you haven't.
Yeah, and you know what? We talked about the feeling of pressure to watch all things at once, but now it's a couple weeks after the premiere. Take your time with it. Go with it and just enjoy it. I think, too, spoilers don't ruin the show either.
No.
Not like with, say, Game of Thrones where you'd say, that character definitely dies or whatever.
If you showed me, I saw what the ending was of part 2, excuse me.
Yes.
Back in February, if you showed that to me before watching this, Bean is tied up at a stake at the end of the season, I would be like, so? That means nothing to me. I'll just watch it.
Yeah, just watch and enjoy. It's a great, I think it's a lot of fun that is better on each rewatch. I think once you're not in the binge mindset and you just revisit episodes here and there, the episodes are more fun when you can appreciate them on their own in a more sitcom style, which is, maybe that's just the way our brains have been trained with Simpsons style content.
We're old and these things aren't marketed to us anymore.
That's true. That's true. We're almost out of that nuts and gum demographic.
Damn it.
Bob.
What was it? 18 to 30?
Oh shit! Did he say 35?
I thought it was 35.
18 to 49.
18 to 49. Wow. So we have quite a bit of time left.
Yes, we're all right. Nuts and gum age is 18 to 49.
Although
we're still safe.
That was back in 1993 or 4. The demographics are so precise now.
Yeah.
But yes, thanks for listening to What a Cartoon.
Yes.
If you want to support our show and get every podcast 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and sign up at the $5 level. For just $5 a month, you'll get that, and you'll also have access to all of our exclusive miniseries, including the upcoming Talking Futurama Season 2. We're not doing parts. Actually, we are. So it's Season 2, Part 1 is coming in October. You want to be there for it, but you'll also have access to the previous 3 miniseries and so much more. Too many things to list here, but over 100 bonus podcasts. But Henry, we have special extra long podcasts happening at the $10 level, including our longest podcast ever.
My God, yes. Yeah. If you enjoy this What a Cartoon podcast and want to get even more of it for $10 a month, plus all of the stuff Bob just talked about for the $5 a month folks. You want to sign up for the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. $10 a month Patreon supporters get to hear a different animated feature film be deconstructed once a month. Back in September, we did Cowboy Bebop Knocking on Heaven's Door, aka Cowboy Bebop the movie. 4 hours and 22 minutes of podcast on that. And in October, we're keeping the Halloween spirit in style with The Nightmare Before Christmas by Henry Selick. That's who you should always identify with that movie.
It's
folks.
Henry Selick's The Nightmare Before Christmas, not Tim Burton's.
Yes, but you want to sign up for $10 a month to get access to over 30 hours of podcasting exclusivity at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts, a classic gaming podcast. Find that every Monday and occasionally on Friday at retronauts.com, or look for Retronauts in your podcast machine. I think you'll like it if you've ever played a video game. Henry, what about you?
You can follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREYG. Anytime new stuff comes out on the Patreon or on our free feeds, I am certain to tweet about it, and you'll know about it first if you follow me at HENEREYG.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you next week for the 1949 Disney adaptation of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and we will see you then.
Let's rehearse Act 1, Scene 2, Zarg and Dagmar, written and directed by Wyman Petty.
Wait, you're taking credit?
If you're not happy, they're casting for pork chop number 2 at the butcher shop.
Pork chop number 2? I'm no common cutlet. I'm a leading ham.
The first taste of rare bourbon you finally got your hands on. That's nice. At Caskers.com, we make this experience easy. Caskers is a one-stop spirit curator with an impressive selection of exclusive, sought-after, rare, and household names in the realm of premium spirits and champagne. Discover the top flavors of the year now by going to Caskers.com and using code WELCOME10 for $10 off your first purchase. Get $10 off your first purchase with code WELCOME10 at Caskers.com.